Hello. Today I'd like to test the FPGASid together with the Messiah, and especially I want to test the combination of Messiah, FPGASid and pedal inputs or putty inputs, whatever you want to call this. So, and as already promised, we are going to have some background music for the more boring parts. And this music is coming from Spino 2006, which is one of his nicknames. And I promised that we're going to see what's playing right now. And here it is at the top of the screen. We can see it. So there. And the first thing we have to do is to configure the FPGASid to run in proper stereo mode using the address Messiah is expecting. And so therefore we're just going to switch over to the C64 screen. And there's a small tool called Config Guru. And if we're going to start this, we will see a basic screen or an easy screen, and here we're going to select full stereo mode, and then we can see that SID1 and SID2 is set to 8580, so that's the new SID model. And if we jump to the export mode, we can see that the SID1 is configured to the basic address, which is D400. But now we have to set the second SID to the Messiah address, which is DE00, and just to avoid any collisions, we're going to disable the other addresses as well. And the other things we can just leave as they are. And now let's just flash this to the memory, so that after the reset we will still have the same configuration. And I was actually not sure which memory I'm using right now, so let's just flash it to both of it. And then we can jump out of this one. But before we're going to do so, I just want to show you that I have connected 3 additional address lines which are connected to the FPGASid. So this is actually a address line 5 on the CPU and the address line 9 on the CPU. So it's pin 12 and pin 16. And we get this additional I/O address, which is required for the DE00 address from the line 9 of the expansion port. So everything's set like this. This is supposed to work. I highly recommend to connect those kind of hookups, or whatever we want to call this, just when you have switched off your C64. It is very easy to bridge or to connect 2 of the pins on the CPU quite easily, and this is perhaps not very good in any circumstances. So please switch off your C64 before you go to attach something to the board. So, and as already mentioned in one of my previous videos, I've created a stereo output for the FPGASid. So usually the first channel is routed through the board to the normal C64 output of the audio signal, and the second channel is routed through this 3.5 millimeter audio jack connector. And I just welded or soldered, not welded, sorry, I've just soldered a second wire to the output pin of the FPGASid, which is the very same like on the normal SID, so it's pin 2447, I think. Just let me just check it briefly, but I don't want to tell you something wrong. So 27, yes, so it's yeah, this it comes with 28 pins, so it's the second last pin, the 27. and therefore we have a stereo audio signal, and this is going through this kind of bulky wire to my FrameMeister, and I'm using this as audio input. So much said about this. I think the board is set up and the FPGA is set up quite okay. Then let's switch off the C64 and go directly to Mssiah. So since this is a little bit bulky on my desk, then let's move this aside. And this is the Mssiah cartridge. You can see Mssiah music, MIDI SID software. I should read it before I say something. And it's very easy to connect because this has to be on the top. The former version, which was called Prophet 64, had no MIDI input, and therefore it was really important which side was top, but here it's now easy. So we plug this in to our C64, and as I recognized last time, this expansion port is pretty tight. I haven't figured out what's really being the problem. And well, let's hope for the best. No smoke, no flames, fingers crossed. And Mssiah should start up. And now the FrameMeister is syncing, and here we go. So, and in order to do so, we have to configure Mssiah first. So we can go to the diagnostics, for example, and here we can check all the voices of the SIDs. So let's switch off the background music for now, and then we can have a short test whether we can hear something. That's fine. Even this. So the filters are working fine as well. So let's jump out of this, and then let's go for a first test sound first. Let's jump to the sequencer, and basically this is a little bit easier to do by keys, by using a mouse. So now I just have to remember how we can use the function keys to go around. Well, I should have used the mouse perhaps. I'm doing a lot of things, but not what I want to do. So now I know how to navigate through Mssiah, and then we just need a key to open it. And here we can load the demo, and we say yes to this. Then we can go out, and as we learned, we can use the cursor keys, and then we can press play, and then we should hear some music. So this is working quite fine. We can make it a little bit louder as well. Okay, great. So this is working so far. I just started it again. It was more or less accidental. So let's see whether we can get out of this one. And oops, a little bit too far. Yes, we are sure. And the next thing I like to test is whether the potentiometers are working, and therefore we need to connect them to the C64. And usually this is something that's well recommended to switch off the C64 as well. And well, in order to demonstrate this, then let's do so. And this is a self-built, let's say, a pedal box or potentiometer box, which I'm using for my music project, and it fits quite well to the board as well. And as you can see, I'm using 2 of them, so now it's covered. Okay, let's go for this one. So I got 2 potentiometer boxes which I built myself, and it's a combo box. So I have a joystick with a joystick button, same on this side, and I got 4 potentiometers. And on the back side, which is probably a little bit hard to see because the cable is a little bit tight, I got a sub D connector. That's the very same like the C64 is using. And here I'm able to connect a mouse, and with this switch I can switch between the input and the potentiometers. So I can use the sequencer in mouse mode. I can use the 1351 Commodore mouse, or I'm just going to use the potentiometers. So much said about this. Then let's switch the C64 on. We'll take a brief moment. And here we go. And this time I want to go to the mono synthesizer. And here it is. And now we have to use control and go to settings. And in settings we're going to say we want to use potentiometers, and here we want to say we want to use all 4 of them. And then we can load a demo pattern, and therefore we have to go for demo, and here we can use the patterns, and we say yes. And then let's jump out of this, and now we have 4 different colored circles. I hope this is visible. And usually they are a little bit nervous on a normal C64, but here they look quite stable. And as a test, let's turn them, and we can see they working very fine. So the tricky thing is to remember the alignment. And usually what I'm doing is that they are grouped in 2 by 2. And usually I'm trying to assign this one, which is in the upper left hand corner, to the one that's on the screen upper left hand corner as well. And in order to do so, we have to go to this, and here we can say which pedal input we're going to assign. And as we learned that this one is the green one, and if we now going to press a key which reflects functions in the monosynth, we now learned that we're actually assigning one X, and this is the white one, and the white one is the lower right hand corner, so it's the opposite thing. So let's set this one to, for example, the volume, which is here. And then we switch to the next one by using the Commodore key. We have 1Y, which is probably going to be this one or the one above. So let's jump to the corner. That's the yellow one. And this is going to be this one. And I like to have this one on the LFO. And then we can go for the next one, which is 2x. So that's probably going to be this one. And let's set this to cutoff. And yeah, we're right. So and there's just one left, and this we can set to filter environment. And now the alignment of the potentiometers are kind of fitting to the physical layout. So, and now if you just press run stop, we should hear some music. And now we can use the pedals to work on the cutoff. Just has a very slight effect here. It's a little bit strange. The volume is working. So let's see whether we can so resonance is working. Set this back. And I think the problem is that we have to disable environment. Here we go. So the interesting thing is if we're going to set and now jump back to this one. And using the amount I think we have to change not this, but this one. So now we got a nice filter sweep. And if we're going to set the release rate, we have an even longer signal. And in order to get a little bit more stereo signal, let's just make this a little bit softer. We can use this Detune, so by setting Detune to a higher value than 0, and we are able to separate the channels. And now it sounds more stereo-ish. And we can change the patches as well. And as you can see, the pedal assignment remains the same. Yeah, and that's basically all what I was going to test. I was just curious to see whether the FPGASID is reading the analog inputs in a way Mssiah is understanding. The background is that Mssiah is a little bit, let's say, tricky or a little bit difficult in reading analog signals. And as I said, when you're going to use a standard SID or especially a twin SID solution, those analog inputs tend to be very shaky, or they kind of shiver. And sometimes it's even affecting the sound in a way that even if one parameter is jumping just by one value, then you get some kind of well, let's say irritation or something like this. So I highly appreciate that the pedals are working in a very solid state here. That's very smooth, and you can set them really to the value you want to set them. But what kind of makes me a little bit nervous is that the sound is not as good as I noticed from a normal SID. So if we listen carefully to some of the background noises, then you may recognize that there is between the tones there's a very short high pitch noise, and this is quite unusual. So I'm not aware that this is coming from a normal SID as well. So that's probably something we need to address, and that's perhaps due to the filter emulation of the FPGASID, I don't know. But I recognize this during other sounds as well, so especially when you have a demo running which is using a lot of filter functions, then you have those short high pitching noises in between, and sometimes it creates a very low frequent kind of humming as well. But I wasn't able to recreate this, so that's something I really have to test again. But well, for now, that's all I want to say today about pedal input and FPGA and Mssiah at all. I'm really happy that Mssiah is recognizing the second SID on the FPGA, that this is working quite fine, because the address DE00 is a little bit tricky in some configurations, but if you just have a, let's say, dedicated Mssiah board, and this is what I really recommend, then this is really working fine, and everything has been recognized, everything was running smoothly, kind of out of the box. So that's really a configuration that looks very promising, and I think this is very interesting because the FPGASid is providing a very clear audio signal. So there is no background noise, there is no IC high pitch noise and all that stuff that's going on the board. So if you're really looking for a solution to produce very clear but C64 like sounds, then I think this is very promising. So well, as usual, that's all I have to say. And if you have any questions, comments, whatever, feel free to use the comment section. And if you want to stay informed, well, as usual, please subscribe. I highly appreciate it. So thank you for watching, and bye bye.